If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful human moments in the stars. Join our resistance. Your support keeps our universe alive. The cold wind screamed through the ruins of the old Earth cities, carrying the scent of rust, ash, and broken dreams. Concrete skeletons of towers loomed over empty streets, casting long shadows in the weak orange light of a sun dimmed by decades of atmospheric decay. In the silence, something stirred beneath a pile of debris that had once been a hospital wall. A hand, bloodied, human, still moving. Garen Locke clawed his way out of the wreckage, breath ragged, ribs broken, one eye swollen. Shut. The last thing he remembered was the orbital strike, a blinding flash, then nothing. But he was still here, still breathing. He pushed himself up, wincing as pain bloomed through his chest like fire. The sky above was filled with the eerie glow of alien carriers, their enormous hulls blocking out the stars. They hadn't finished the job. That was their mistake. He stumbled through the empty city, memories crashing through his mind like thunder. The evacuation order, the screams in the comms, the way his team had stayed behind to hold the perimeter. And the sound, the terrible, beautiful sound of the children they'd saved getting away before the sky burned white. He should have died there, but he hadn't. The resistance thought he was gone. His name was etched into the wall of the fallen, broadcasted in the morning feeds. His sister, Ellen, had whispered goodbye into the static, not knowing he was still clutching life in the wreckage of Sector 12. But death wasn't strong enough to keep him down. Not now. Not while they still needed him. Garen found shelter in a burned-out transport hub. He wrapped his cracked ribs with wire and insulation foam, then raided an old med locker for a stim patch. The injection hit like lightning. His hands stopped shaking. His mind sharpened. He activated the emergency beacon in his neural implant and started recording. This is Garen Locke. If anyone's listening, I'm not dead. Not yet. And I swear, I'm not stopping until the sky is ours again. A week passed, then another. He didn't rest much, couldn't. He moved through the city like a shadow, scavenging weapons, mapping patrol routes, avoiding the alien drones that searched for survivors. He left messages etched in walls, coded signals only resistance members would recognize. A spiral of fire, the symbol of the last stand. And one day, he got an answer. A message blinked into his neural feed, hidden in a pulse from a stolen satellite. Drone. Sector 19, midnight, come alone. He arrived in silence, crouched in the shell of a museum half swallowed by vines. A figure stepped from the dark, her face hidden beneath a cracked visor. She pulled it off slowly and Garen's breath caught Ellen. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, time stopped. You were gone. I refused, he said simply. And now we fight. They moved through the city like ghosts. Others joined them, those who'd survived and those who had nothing left to lose. A former sniper with one arm and a grudge. A mechanic who'd rigged a portable EMP launcher from a microwave and hope. A kid who hadn't spoken since her family. Was vaporized but could hack a drone net blindfolded. And always, Garen at the front. He knew the enemy now. Their patrol cycles, their weak points. He remembered how they moved, how they thought. He learned their code. He started speaking it, mocking their broadcasts, luring them into traps. They called him the echo that wouldn't fade. When the resistance heard he was alive, something shifted. 1,000 whispers turned into one roar. His name spread like fire. Garen Locke had survived the orbital strike. He was hunting the invaders. And he wasn't stopping. The aliens began to notice. They doubled the patrols. Burned entire sectors trying to smoke him out. But every time, he slipped through. Every time he left a message. Still here. One night, he stood atop the broken spire of a weather tower, watching the enemy mothership descend over the capital ruins. It was enormous, blotting out the moon, thrumming with the low hum of 1,000. Engines, the final phase, total control. But Garen had a plan. He gathered his team beneath the Earth's crust, in the old magrail tunnels. There, in the damp dark, he showed them what he'd been building, a bomb, powered by a collapsed reactor core, small enough to sneak onto the alien mothership if someone could get close enough. "I'll do it," he said. "You'll die," Ellen replied. "I already did," he answered. They argued, pleaded. But his eyes told them the truth. He was already halfway gone. This was his final move. And it had to count. The night of the assault, they launched the plan. Disguised in stolen armor, Garen infiltrated the landing zone while the others created chaos on the ground. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose, carving a path through plasma and steel until he reached the lift into the mothership's core. And just as he placed the bomb beside the reactor's heart, just as the timer started counting down from 60, he heard a sound that froze him in place. A child's cry. A human voice, alive, inside the ship. He turned toward the noise, torn between duty and instinct, heart pounding as the seconds ticked away. 52, 51, and then the ship shook. Lights flickered. A voice echoed in the alien tongue. Panicked. Confused, Garen's eyes went wide. He knew that voice. It was his. The voice was distorted, laced with static, and layered with machine-filtered tones. But it was his exact cadence, his exact phrasing, echoing through the corridors of the alien mothership. "This is Garen Locke. If anyone's listening. I'm not dead." It looped over and over, twisted into some kind of broadcast the enemy had been using to lure survivors into ambushes. They were using him. Rage flared through his veins like wildfire. 40 seconds left on the timer. But the child's cry came again, closer this time. He couldn't ignore it. He bolted down the side passage, pulse rifle in hand, helmet feed flickering with every step. The air inside the alien vessel was thick with mist and a constant low hum that pressed against his skull. The walls pulsed like breathing skin, alive with the alien tech. And then he saw her. A girl, no older than 8, crouched inside a force field cage, bruised and shivering. Human. Real. Her eyes locked onto his, and in that second, Garen knew. She wasn't bait. She was a survivor, one of the evacuees. Somehow, captured, left behind, 30 seconds. He sprinted to the console, cracked it open, and jammed in his override chip. Sparks flew. The field collapsed. She bolted into his arms without hesitation. "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got you." But the bomb was ticking. He hoisted her onto his back, recalculated the escape route in his neural HUD, and sprinted toward the maintenance shaft. Behind him, klaxons began to wail. The aliens had noticed. Doors slammed shut. Drones swarmed. His rifle barked heat and fury, dropping them one after another, but they kept coming. 20 seconds. He dove through a maintenance hatch and slid. Down a tunnel, slick with coolant, the girl clutching his armor. The ship bucked violently beneath him, like it knew what was coming. 10 seconds. He reached the emergency drop bay, only one pod. He shoved the girl inside, activated the launch protocol, and hesitated. Just long enough for her small hand to grab his. "You're coming too," she whispered. Garen shook his head. "I can't, not this time. But I promise to keep you safe. That's what matters." Her eyes filled with tears, but the hatch sealed. The pod ejected with a thunderous blast, and as the countdown reached 3, Garen turned back toward the reactor, breath steady. The explosion tore through, the mothership like a spear of fire. From the ruins of the city below, the resistance watched in stunned silence as the sky bloomed gold, then red, then fell into darkness. The alien vessel cracked apart like a burning shell, raining debris across miles of wasteland. No one expected to find survivors. The girl's pod was tracked and recovered by Ellen herself. When they opened the hatch, the girl blinked at the sudden light and whispered, He said. He refused to die. The resistance mourned. They honored him. But the signal didn't stop. Weeks later, a scavenger crew deep in the wastes picked up a faint, repeating code. Not a beacon, not human, but familiar. It wasn't a message this time. It was a transmission of alien origin, a single looped phrase over and over, warped by static and translation errors. He refused to die. And then something worse. Scattered reports of strange figures appearing at night. A man moving through the ruins, killing alien patrols with brutal precision. No face, no voice, but always the same message etched in plasma across the walls. Still here. The resistance. Leadership dismissed it as a ghost story, grief, hallucinations. But Ellen knew better. One evening, in the silence of her command room, her comms terminal blinked. One unread message, no sender, no encryption, just a short line of text. It wasn't my voice. I'm still inside, but I don't know if I'm still me. Her hands trembled. She tried to trace it, failed. The coordinates were scrambled, pulsing from somewhere deep beneath the scorched earth, beneath the crash site of the mothership. She gathered a team, specialists, veterans. They descended into the ruins with radiation suits and pulse gear. The tunnels were scorched, half melted, stinking of ozone and alien decay. But they followed the signal. They found a chamber, half alien, half human architecture, a fusion of broken tech. And in the center, suspended in a stasis field, was Garen Locke, or what was left of him. His body was intact, barely, scorched, fused with strange wiring. His eyes flickered with unnatural light. He was breathing, watching, but silent. The techs went to work. Ellen stood over him, whispering his name, over and over, and finally, his mouth moved. Ellen, it's still me, but they're inside me now. Her blood ran cold. Don't trust. The voice. The stasis field surged, and alarms screamed through the compound. The fusion core buried beneath the mothership began to reawaken. And from the far side of the chamber something moved, something that looked like Garen but wasn't. A second figure, same face, same eyes, but wrong, alien, and it spoke in Garen's exact voice. You should have let me die. The room split with a thunderous shriek as the false Garen stepped forward, his face twisted in an unnatural calm that didn't belong to a man. Not really. His body moved like it remembered how to be human, but everything else, the angle of his neck, the pulsing blue glow in his veins, the rhythm of his words, was alien. He was a mirror laced with wires, a memory corrupted by something ancient and alive. Ellen raised her rifle. Don't move. The real Garen, what was left of him, strained against the stasis field. His fingers twitched. His voice broke through the static. Kill it! Ellen! Kill me! The techs hesitated, unsure who the enemy was. Then the clone lunged. Chaos erupted. Plasma burst from the clone's fingers like claws. A soldier screamed as his armor melted on contact. Ellen fired. Round after round into the doppelganger's chest, but it barely flinched. It moved with purpose, carving through the team like it already knew them. Knew their fears. Knew her. She dragged a wounded tech into cover, heart pounding. From behind the control panel, sparks rained down as the fusion core began to overload. The alien tech had been trying to rebuild him, to resurrect Garen, but in their image. Something had gone wrong. Or maybe it hadn't. The original Garen, trapped in the stasis field, shouted through gritted teeth. They copied me! Split me! I'm not whole! You have to shut it down! How? Ellen screamed over the noise. He didn't answer. A blast rocked the chamber. The clone shrieked, not in pain, but in fury. It turned toward the stasis unit and slammed its hand against the containment shell. The glass rippled, but didn't break. Inside, Garen's eyes rolled back. It's trying to finish it. Merge with me. Ellen's fingers flew across the console. Manual override. Power cycle. She needed to release him before the clone did. A proximity alert flashed red on the screen. Something else was coming. Multiple signatures. Alien. Advancing fast. Outside, resistance scouts watched as black spires erupted from the ground near the crash site. They weren't just rebuilding the ship. They were rebuilding a gate. Something was trying to open from the other side. Ellen triggered the release. The stasis field dropped with a sharp crack, and Garen collapsed into her arms. His body was heavy, drenched in sweat, eyes fluttering like someone waking from a coma. She reached for the emergency injector in her vest and slammed it into his neck. He gasped as life surged back in. I remember, he whispered. Everything. What they did. What they want. Then tell me, Ellen said. They weren't invading. They were escaping from something worse, something older than war. And now it's trying to come through me. The clone shrieked again, more distorted now, like the sound of a dying machine begging to live. It flung itself at them just as Garen pushed Ellen aside. He tackled the thing, both of them crashing through the shattered chamber wall into the abyss below. Ellen screamed his name, but there was no answer. 3 days passed. The resistance evacuated the sector. The gate collapsed inward, swallowing the ruins. The clone was gone. Garen was gone. Again. But this time, there was no body. And then the dreams began. Ellen awoke each night choking on starlight and static, hearing his voice whisper from behind her eyes. They're still in me. The resistance started finding signs, symbols etched in scorched stone. Languages no one could translate. Words that hadn't been spoken in any known galaxy. But at the center of them all was always one word, repeated over and over in every dialect. Garen. Then a scout returned from the wastes, pale and trembling, claiming he'd seen a man with glowing eyes walking alone through the ash fields. He'd spoken in the voice of 1,000 souls and said only one thing. They think I belong to them. But I remember who I was. The resistance didn't know what to do with the reports. Some believed Garen had become something new, something both human and alien. A weapon born from pain. Others feared he was no longer on their side. That the thing wearing his skin wasn't Garen anymore. Just a vessel twisted by whatever had tried to merge with him. Ellen didn't care. She needed to find him, to bring him back, if any part of him was still real. She led a mission into the wastes, no backup, no drones, just the old trails and hope. At the edge of a collapsed city, they found a crater, deep, glassed, still warm. In its center stood a figure, unmoving. She called his name, once, twice. He turned slowly. Same face. Same scars. But his eyes burned with something vast and ancient. Something that had stared into the dark too long. He stepped toward her. You came. Are you still you? She asked. I'm what's left of him, he said. But I remember everything. He looked up at the blackening sky. A shadow moved behind the clouds, massive, coiled, watching. They weren't escaping. They were the first wave. And now the real war begins. The clouds churned like boiling ink above the crater, and the wind screamed with a voice that didn't belong to Earth anymore. Garen stood still, his silhouette barely human against the flickering storm. Ellen took a cautious step forward, heart pounding as every instinct screamed that this wasn't the same man who once defied death. His voice was the same, his face nearly identical. But there was a quiet in him now, something vast and cold, like space itself had sunk into his soul. I saw what's coming, he said. It doesn't care about species, planets, history. It only consumes. Ellen's team formed a perimeter around the crater, scanning for movement. But their feeds were erratic, sensors blurring, compasses spinning. The further they stepped into the impact zone, the more reality fractured. Time felt slower. Sound bent unnaturally. "What is it, Garen?" she asked. "What did you see?" He closed his eyes, and the earth beneath them trembled slightly, like something massive shifting deep below. They call it the singularity of flesh, a living intelligence, older than stars. It devours identity, converts memory into function, thought into command. It was sleeping, until the war woke it. That's what the aliens were fleeing, and that's why they needed me. Because I survived something I shouldn't have. I broke the rules of entropy, and that drew its attention. Ellen swallowed hard. "So you're saying they turned you into bait?" "They turned me into a key," Garen whispered. "They needed something human, something stubborn, something that refuses to die, to carry their virus into the core of what's coming. They thought they could shape me into a weapon and aim me like a blade." He looked at his hands. They shimmered faintly, not with tech, but something worse, like parts of him weren't bound by time anymore. They didn't understand. I wasn't just alive. I was angry. The ground quaked again. A pulse burst through the crater, knocking Ellen to her knees. Her visor cracked. Blood ran down her cheek. Suddenly Garen was beside her, lifting her up with impossible gentleness. "They're tunneling through," he said, voice flat. "There's not much time." "Then help us stop them," she said. "Help us fight." I'm fighting," Garen replied, eyes burning. "Every second I hold on to myself, it slows the merge, but it's not enough." He led them to the heart of the crater, what remained of the alien core reactor. It had fused with Earth's bedrock, become something new, something alive. Pulsing veins of metal and bone spiraled out from it like a parasitic root system. At the center, a shape was forming, a structure, a gate, not for ships, for thoughts, for something that existed outside physics, waiting to pour in. "I can shut it down," Garen said. "But I need to go deeper." Ellen shook her head. "You just came back. I'm not losing you again." "You don't get it," he said. "I never came back. That version of me died in the explosion. What's left is a reflection. They stitched me from memories and hate and instinct. But somewhere inside, there's still a spark of what I was. I can use it. And if we lose you completely," she asked, "then you destroy what's left." His voice was steady, resolute, but his eyes flickered with something else. Fear. He stepped into the root core, and the ground split open, revealing a glowing shaft of light descending into the Earth's crust. He turned back to her once, just once. "Promise me, Ellen, if I stop speaking in my own voice, if I forget who you are, promise you'll end it." She didn't speak. She just nodded, teeth clenched, eyes wet. Then he descended. For hours, the team waited in silence, listening to the unnatural pulses echo from the depths. Their comms picked up fragments of Garen's voice, muttering, then shouting, then whispering languages no human had ever known. Sometimes it wasn't his voice at all. Sometimes it spoke through him, using his mouth like a borrowed shell. Then, the signal cut out. The sky darkened. The gate began to open again. And something began to rise. A massive shape erupted from the crater, a fusion of Garen's likeness and alien machinery, towering, skeletal, wrapped in tendrils of crackling energy. Its face was his. Its voice wasn't. Identity, assimilated, it declared. Biological anchor complete. Humanity is obsolete. The resistance opened fire. Nothing worked. The thing moved through plasma rounds like mist. It spoke in 1,000 voices at once. Ellen screamed his name, desperate, voice raw, but the thing didn't flinch. And then, for a moment, it hesitated. Its head turned, its eyes flickered. And Garen's voice, real, broken, barely audible, whispered out of the storm. "Now." Ellen pulled the trigger on the pulse detonator. The entire crater lit up in blinding white. The core collapsed. The gate folded inward. Reality snapped like a taut wire, and the creature was sucked downward into the void it had tried to open. When the dust cleared, the crater was gone. Flat Earth. Silent. Still. They searched for days. No trace, no signal, no body, only one thing. Remained, a symbol carved into the stone by a human hand. It was a spiral of fire, and beneath it, one line, still here. The message etched into the stone haunted her dreams. Still here? Ellen traced it with her fingers as dawn broke over the wastes, light filtering through the smoke-choked sky like faded memories. The crater was gone, wiped clean like it had. Never existed. No radiation, no debris, no Garen. Just silence. And that line, burned deep into the earth with impossible precision. Not even the best plasma cutters could etch like that. It wasn't human. But the message was his, and now she was sure. He hadn't died. Not fully. Back at base, reports were growing stranger. Aliens retreating from border sectors. Vanishing, not from battle, but from fear. Something was moving across the ruins, quiet and unseen. Patrol drones found shredded remains of alien commanders, torn apart by weapons they didn't recognize. Melted into the ground were claw marks and footprints. Human. Something was hunting them. Ellen pored over satellite data. Twisted transmissions, psychic tremors from the deep black. All pointed to one conclusion. Garen Locke had survived. But he wasn't just Garen anymore. He was evolving. She followed the trail. Faint energy pulses, distorted audio clips, fragments of words spoken across dead channels. They want me back. But I remember. She tracked him to Sector 14, the heart of the Deadlands, a place humans no longer dared to enter. Machines failed there. Sound warped. Time buckled. That's where she found him, or what was left of him. He stood alone at the center of a shattered alien war engine, a wreck the size of a city block. Around him, the alien dead lay twisted, burned, their own weapons melted into slag. He wasn't wearing armor. He didn't need it. His body flickered with a pulse like a living star. A shroud of dark energy coiled around his skin like a second soul. He turned to her slowly, like he'd been expecting her all along. "You came," he said. His voice quiet but layered, like something else still whispered beneath his words. She didn't move. "Are you still in control?" "For now," he said. "But I don't know how long." "What did they do to you?" "They opened me," he replied. "Made me a door, but I shut it, at a cost." She stepped closer. "Why are you killing them?" "Because they're calling the singularity again," he said. "They think it can save them. But it won't stop. Not until we make it." "Make what?" He looked to the sky, where cracks of strange lightning shimmered between the clouds. "A new version of us, one that won't break." The ground quaked. Far away, alarms screamed across Resistance Command. A massive object was breaching low. Orbit. Another alien arc. Bigger than anything before. Not for battle, for surrender. It was coming down fast, no weapons deployed, and with a signal broadcast in thousands of human languages. "Help us. He hunts us. He is not yours anymore." Ellen stared at Garen. "You've become a myth." "No," he said. "I became necessary." She stepped forward, hand out, but his body rippled, instinctively drawing back. "I'm trying, Ellen," he said. "But every time I kill them, it grows. This thing inside me, it remembers how their minds worked. It's learning. It's getting stronger." "Then let us help." "You can't," he whispered. "You'd only feed it. I have to go deeper. I have to find the core of what they ran from." Suddenly the sky cracked with thunder. A shockwave hit them like gravity. Folding in reverse, the ark had landed, far off, but the sound carried like a scream across the world. Ellen turned toward it, comms buzzing with emergency orders, resistance leaders panicking. Garen didn't move. "They're offering themselves up," he said. "They think if they give the singularity what it wants, it'll leave. But it won't. Then we stop it together." His eyes met hers. For a moment, just a moment, she saw him again. Tired, scared, human. "I can't promise I'll be me by the eye." "End of this," he said. "Then I'll remind you," she replied. He nodded once. "Then we go." They crossed the scarred plains together. Alien corpses lined the way. The closer they came to the Ark, the colder it got. The air shimmered with unspoken thought. The singularity had sent a piece of itself inside the ship, just a whisper, a taste of the storm to come. Inside, they found the survivors. Not warriors, scientists, priests, refugees. Their eyes burned with silver light, and when they saw Garen, they dropped to their knees. "You are the herald," one whispered, "the flesh-born flame." "I am the mistake," Garen growled, and his voice cracked the walls. The ship trembled as if it feared him, and from deep below, something answered, not with sound, but memory. Ellen gasped as a flood of visions hit her. A civilization collapsing, suns devoured, minds bent and broken. A voice without shape, older than time, whispering through all things, "You are mine, return to function." Garen fell to his knees, trembling. "It's calling me home." Ellen grabbed him, eyes burning. "Then scream loud enough to remind it you're not." He stood, and something inside him roared. Not alien, human, raw, defiant, furious. He walked into the heart of the Ark and unleashed himself. Power tore through the ship in waves. The alien data structures melted. Thought screamed and unraveled. And the singularity screamed back. Not in pain, but confusion. This wasn't what it expected. Garen wasn't obeying. He was infecting it, rewriting it, and then everything exploded into white. The Ark disintegrated mid-air. No debris, no survivors, just a pulse that spread across the world, resetting everything it touched. Ellen awoke hours later in a crater, no Garen, no signal, just the wind whispering across ash and silence. "I remember, and I am not done." The sun never rose that day. Ellen stood at the edge of the broken world, staring into a horizon that bled shadows. Where once mountains stood, now only glass plains stretched endlessly, scorched clean by whatever Garen had become. For weeks, the sky remained fractured, veined with black lightning and whispers in languages that didn't belong in sound. Earth hadn't healed, it had mutated. And across resistance channels, a single phrase kept echoing from intercepted transmissions, alien and human alike. "He is rewriting the code of reality." Garen Locke, the last human weapon, the man who refused to die, had vanished into the folds of quantum storm space when the Ark disintegrated. But his presence lingered. Across every battlefield, alien and resistance alike, strange events began. Time loops, memory fractures, machines that turned to dust when touched, soldiers hearing, his voice in their sleep guiding them, warning them. The singularity was no longer hunting Earth, now it was circling, and it was afraid. At Resistance Command, the Council debated using the nuclear failsafes, planet-wide resets to eliminate any trace of what Garen had become. But Ellen fought them. She insisted he wasn't lost, that there was still a man inside whatever entity now drifted between dimensions. Then came the anomaly in Sector 9. A dome, perfect, pulsing with low resonance, had formed overnight where once stood a ruined alien stronghold. No one could penetrate it. Drones vanished, ships malfunctioned, but from its surface a soft hum echoed in human DNA frequency, like a song made of memory. Ellen went alone. She reached the dome's edge and pressed her hand to its smooth surface. It felt warm, familiar. The hum grew louder, Not sound, but thought. You found me once. Find me again. She stepped inside. Everything warped. She was no longer in the wastes. She was in his mind. A city stood before her. It looked like Earth, skyscrapers, streets, clouds. But the angles were wrong. Every building shimmered like it was remembering itself. And in the center stood Garen. He was older, worn, eyes glowing like a dying star, but still him. "Where are we?" she asked. "Inside the fracture," he said. "Between what is and what was." "I thought you were gone." "I am," he whispered. "And I'm not." He walked beside her through the memory city. Everything they passed flickered, moments of their past. Training fields, battlefields, laughter, blood. The day he died, the day he came back. "They tried to erase me," he said, "turn me into a tool. But something deeper held on, something angry, something human." "The singularity?" she asked. "It's learning," he said, "but it's confused. I don't obey its laws. It wants to understand, so it made this, a prison shaped like memory. Then break it. I can't," he said. "Not alone." The ground rumbled. Cracks spread across the memory streets. The sky above glitched, revealing a vast, dark eye beyond the veil, watching, learning. "It's waking," Garen said. "Fully, soon. And when it does, everything changes. Not just Earth. Every thought that ever dreamed of rebellion will be erased." "What do we do?" He turned to her. For the first time in years, he looked scared. "You anchor me. Right here. Right now. You remind me of who I was, so I can become what I have to be." She stepped forward and placed her hand on his chest. Felt his heart. Steady. Strong. Real. "You are Garen Locke, the man who burned through death. The man who held the line when all others fell. You are not theirs. You never were." Light erupted from him. The dome shattered. And in orbit, where the singularity had begun forming its first visible mass, a star-sized sphere of devouring intent, the structure hesitated, then fractured. Across alien systems, the impossible happened. Ships stopped responding. AI cores crashed. Worlds enslaved for centuries suddenly went dark. Garen's echo passed through them like a ghost, short-circuiting the hive. And then, in deep space, near the void that had swallowed whole civilizations, something spoke back. It wasn't alien. It wasn't human. It was a third voice, one that had never existed until now. "We are what you feared. We remember pain. We evolved from death." Ellen awoke back in the wastes, lying beside a crater of pure glass. Garen was gone. Again. But etched into the ground for miles were words in both alien glyphs and human text. Phase 1. Liberation complete. And far above Earth, something shimmered in orbit. Not a ship, not a gate, a shape, growing, shifting. Made of thought and fire and will. He wasn't fighting the singularity anymore. He was becoming its replacement. The stars no longer followed their old paths. From every observatory across Earth and the last surviving colonies, astronomers watched in terror and awe as constellations realigned themselves, subtly at first, then with terrifying speed. Lights, in the void, bent around a single, moving point, a gravitational signature beyond known scale. It wasn't a black hole. It wasn't a fleet. It was him. Garen Locke had returned, but he was no longer entirely human. Aboard the Resistance flagship Vigilant, Hope, Ellen watched the incoming telemetry in silence. The bridge was quiet. No one dared speak. Every satellite, every sensor, every living being on the planet had felt it, like a heartbeat pressing down on their thoughts. Then the message came, not through standard channels, not through radio. It came through dreams. Every human on Earth shared the same vision that night. Fire burning in the shape of a man, walking across stars, speaking a single word, awaken. The next day, reports flooded in, humans showing abilities they never had before. Increased memory, shared consciousness. Resistant soldiers completing each other's sentences, seeing flashes of each other's thoughts. A new neural web was forming, organic, silent, growing faster than any AI ever built. It was Garen. He had seeded something into humanity, and the singularity was terrified. From across the galaxy, alien signals screamed. Civilizations that had once tried to destroy Earth now begged for sanctuary. Their fleets raced toward the Sol system, not to conquer, but to hide. Behind Garen, behind what he had become. But he didn't stop there. He reached into the void, into the domain of the singularity itself, and dragged it down. The skies above Earth tore open one final time. Not with thunder, not with invasion, but with consequence. Reality bent around a spiral of collapsing dimensions, and from it poured the singularity, roaring with fury, confused, ancient, alive with thought too vast to measure. It had come to erase him. But Garen didn't flinch. He stood between the stars and humanity like a wall of fire and will, no armor, no weapon, just purpose. His voice rippled across space-time. "You wanted a universe without resistance," he said. "Now, you face what resistance becomes when it refuses to die." The singularity attacked. It didn't use weapons, it used truths, buried memories, alternate timelines, entropy itself. It tried to unravel Garen by showing him every failure, every death, every mistake. It tore open the past, showed him who he had been, what he had done, what it could have been if only he had obeyed. But it didn't work, because pain was what made him, and as it tried to erase him, it only fed him. He struck back, not with force, but with humanity, with every scream he had ever refused to let become silence, with every friend he had buried. Every time he said no, when the world demanded surrender, the sky burned gold. The singularity screamed as its perfect order cracked. For the first time it felt chaos, not as a flaw, but as a force, as power, as life. And then he broke it, not with death, with change. He infected it with emotion, memory, regret, hope, and the singularity shattered. Across the galaxy, order crumbled, but not into madness, into freedom. Systems once enslaved by perfect. Logic bloomed with chaos and creativity. Planets long frozen under alien law ignited with revolution. Garen's final echo swept through every neural net, every machine god, every false perfection. And then, silence. He was gone. No body, no signal, no monument, just stars. Rewritten. In the aftermath, Ellen stood on the highest platform of Earth's new capital, watching the sky. She didn't cry. She didn't pray. She waited. Because across the world, strange signs were appearing. Words in fire. Dreams of golden cities. Footsteps where no one walked, and every child born since that day carried his mark, eyes that shimmered when they dreamed. Minds that connected to others without sound, a voice in the wind, heard only when no one was listening. I refused to die. And in the silence between galaxies, something vast and human stirred, waiting not for worship, but for the next fight.